Welcome everybody. Back to my presentation. Thank you for everyone for coming to join me. I'm hoping that some people here have already been past the Logi stand downstairs, had a bit of a look around. What I'm going to talk about today. Also, we can talk about what's something called flex desks, which if you've been past our stand, you've seen our new hot desk booking system. But we're also going to talk about how Sync really fits into the big picture with, say, Teams Admin Center or Microsoft's Pro Portal as well. I'll kick off with this. I've got a very short presentation, and ideally because I want to go into doing just a live demo for everybody. It's easier if we just do it together or do it live and then talking about it. So really, what is Sync? So some of you might have been walking past that stand and have seen that I've played a similar slideshow to this. Maybe you paid attention, maybe not. Totally fine if you haven't. You're here now, which is great. Sync is essentially, excuse me, a tool that's meant to simplify your workplace management. So if you've got a fleet of rally bars, minis, any Logitech hardware, even down to your personal workspace, so your business keyboards and mice, there is a way for us to manage that. So it's going to simplify your fleet of, to be able to manage your firmware, to be able to manage your on-off monitoring, for example, even down to configuration as well. Which means you get the best of what you have. We see a lot of people who will deploy rally bars out, and I've come back a year later and they're running the same firmware from a year ago, and they're not running Sync internally, and they're not getting the best features. We develop regularly. We're regularly putting out better features. We're always bettering what we are doing in the products. You've seen Sight, you've seen some new products out there too. So we're always improving our hardware. Sync allows you to be on. They're going to tell you straight away if you're monitoring through Sync, hey, there's a firmware update. In fact, I just had some updates come through last night. I got a message saying some updates available, consider updating. I'm not updating on a stand because that would be mistake number one, but I have got updates ready to go. So I've always got the latest and greatest function from what we're doing here. And it also allows you to make some informed decisions with confidence. What I mean by that is we have an ability to grab some analytics from your room. So we're able to understand how is your room utilized? How often is it being utilized? How many people are in your room at any given time? So is it a 20-person room and it's primarily ever used by 2 people? You're going to be able to look at that after 12 months and go, what's my return on my investment for that space? What can I do about that space? Do I make some smaller meeting rooms for those people as well? So Sync helps you understand all that information as well. I'm going to quickly talk about some features of Sync. We do have a pretty comprehensive dashboard. On the outset, it just gives you the information that you need to know for your environment. It's going to look at what firmware is available, how many devices are on the latest firmware, how many are not. Going to give you a quick snapshot of your overall health, and also a bit of a snapshot of if there's any issues in your environment. And it allows you to drill that as well. And we're going to see that when I do a demonstration. There's some detailed inventory monitoring. So one of the questions I keeps coming to me is asset management, or at least understanding or exporting a list of serial numbers or a list of devices that you have in your fleet. And so you're able to get your inventory asset management under control. And also up, down status, also what is wrong. So if you're familiar with our products, particularly Ruddy Plus, for example, you'll remember that there's 2 hubs, there's some speakers, there's a camera. Sync will actually tell you if a microphone's unplugged, for example. So on the dashboard, it's going to say, hey, there's a room with an issue, the microphone's unplugged. It's not going to say that the whole room's down, the whole room's got a problem. And it's going to say, no, there's a warning, there's a single microphone unplugged, and it's going to give you that from the very front page. And detailed usage analysis. So this is back in that analytical function I was telling you about there. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment, about how to get that. Remote room configuration. So that's obviously a really important one. What's the point of having a fleet of devices globally, nationally, wherever, if you can't remotely configure it? A bit useless if you've got to be present with it or get somebody to do it over the phone. It's not fun. So we give you the ability to remotely configure. We also have functions called local network access as well. So it allows you to remotely configure by browsing if they're on the same network as well, which is a great little feature. Over-the-air updates. You can now control via channels. So if you're familiar with Teams, you're familiar with update rings, you're familiar with having devices in a particular ring, so it doesn't get the latest update, or it does, depending on how you want to manage your firmware and your fleet. We have the same thing. So we have channels, and default you get a production and a beta channel. As a sync user, you get access to the next beta firmware before it's released generally. So you can trial that then in your lab. You can trial that in wherever you need to trial it. So you get production and beta. You also get up to 10 more channels you can use as well. So while you do that, you might have executives who always remain on N-1, for example. So that's what my plan would be. I might have a lab testing channel, for example, just maintaining devices maybe on previous firmware for specific reasons. And bulk device management as well. So one of the big things is I don't want to click on each device and update manually, update. I can just click on it and go update all my rally bars to the latest firmware, or update all my rally bars to use speaker tracking, for example, if that's just going to be a corporate policy that speaker tracking is the primary use of the room. So that is available too. So to quickly touch on, I guess, Sync and Pro Portal together, and I guess to an extent you can talk about Teams Admin Console here as well. What are we going to get in each one? So before I talk about that, I want to make it abundantly clear that it's not one or the other, it's one and the other. So Sync complements what Teams does. And we'll talk about how that is. So things we just talked about, Sync will do device config, scheduled, updated reboots, insights. There's an asterisk on there. So that analytical data is part of what's called an uplifted service called Sync Plus. That's a subscription-based. Logitech has a select service as well, which is a support service, which can go 1 through to 5 years worth of support for that room. With that comes that Sync Plus. From everything else, however, so all that management and monitoring is part of the free version of Sync. You get access to beta firmware, again, part of the free version of Sync, and the bulk updates. Now, where does Teams sit in? Now, I couldn't find a logo for Pro Portal, so excuse the Teams logo, but you get the idea. Microsoft through Pro Portal is going to show you incident alerts immediately as well. So not just necessarily with the device, but also if there's an account error, for example. So you're going to get those alerts. You're going to get detailed reporting. So think of Sync controlling your endpoint in your room, controlling the hardware. Pro Portal is going to give you a detailed reporting about the usage, about what's going on in that room as well. Ticketing. So with Pro Portal, you get the option to create a ticket immediately. That's going to go and get support for you. With Logitech Select Service, we do have a ticketing function there as well, and you get a dedicated level 3 engineer who's basically going to help you through that whole process. You can assign your Teams config profile. So it's really important that the Teams config profile is different from the configuration on the rally bar, but it means you can do that there as well. And of course, account configuration. So you can see that Sync doesn't do what Pro Portal does, and not necessarily Pro Portal doesn't do what Sync does. So they're complementary. And in the middle of all that, you have a fully functional, successful meeting room that everyone loves and uses. I'm going to switch over now to a live run through. I'm going to find this very difficult because I imagine I'm going to be turning my head a lot to get this on the screen so everyone can see it. Wonderful. So I'm going to, does this work? No. Does it? It was working yesterday, not working today. Making it difficult for me. That's okay. That's fine. I can deal. So when you look at Sync Portal, so again, this is what you've probably seen when you come downstairs. This is our dashboard for our rooms that are downstairs. So we can see that we're 100% healthy rooms. I like to see that. No snoozed issues, no rooms with issues, all good. Now, I'll give you a real world example. This has our Sydney office in here as well. And I'm going to go Sydney office. 100%, wonderful. Let's go all groups. Now, all groups is going to be a lot lower because part of the all groups is I have a lab. I have my Victoria engineer who also has a lab, and we unplug and we do testing here. So 74% is pretty good considering most things are online. But for the sake of this, I'm going to go back to integrate. So first thing you notice is that we've got a dashboard, and the dashboard is actually changing according to the group I'm selecting here. That group can be via country, it can be via building number, it could be however you want to split out your sites. From this dashboard, I'm seeing the healthy status of my environment, but I'm also seeing my managed devices here. So in the middle, I can see from the rally bar, an update, like I mentioned, an update actually came out last night, which is wonderful. I'm not updating today or tomorrow. I'll do that next week. but 0 of 3 of my rally bars are currently on the latest software. Now, the reason that is because I'm running them all in the beta channel, and we released a new beta firmware update last night. It has a whole bunch of really cool features. But I can see for site, for scheduler, 6 out of 6, 2 out of 2, they're all up to date. Happy days for that. Down, if we were to have any issues with this room, so if anybody unplugged the microphone, unplugged the site, unplugged anything else, that's going to pop up an alert there immediately. Part of that uplifted Sync Plus service is if you have third-party integration with ServiceNow, ServiceNow, that would do automatic ticket creation, would create a ticket for that, and could close it. Correct. Exactly. And if for some reason that issue is resolved within that time, it'll close the ticket as well. So you're not going to get someone running to a room that's already fixed. Yep. So ServiceNow has direct hooks into Sync for that, API hooks for that. So we come down the line, issues. So if there were any issues, I would be able to drill down to the issues here. I see that they're firmware updates. So let's go to let's look at all our groups. So I'm going to select all groups, and let's have a look at an issue. So right off the bat here, I can see that in the Rob demo room, which I can tell you now is currently all offline because he's up here, but we can see tap IP has been disconnected from that particular room. We can see that the site's been disconnected. So it's going to tell you exactly what's been disconnected. It's not just going to do a generic, hey, there's an alert, there's an error, go check the room. It's going to tell you specifically what the problem is so you can be prepared to go to that room. But most of the time, you will spend time here in your inventory management. And similarly here, we're looking at all groups, but we can drill down to just here, for example, and he's going to give another overview quickly of what's going on. So I live in this view most of the time. The dashboard's fantastic for a quick glance before you go out and get your morning coffee. And this is where you live most of the time because we've got a traffic light system, health, no issues. I can see its current use state. So we've got most of those rooms are currently in use and 2 are available, but I've got some updates available as well. I can also see the update channel that it sits in. I'm sitting everything in beta at the moment, where it's at, if that's production, if it's executive, whatever you called it, it's going to tell you right there. And I can see in each of these rooms what devices are going to oversight, what devices are sitting in that space. Seat count's a good one because part of that Sync Plus service is that analytical data. The Rally Bar Mini is able to assess how many people are in a room at any given time. We'll look at it in a moment, just understand your ROI for those spaces as well. From here, I can actually go into, let's go to this room here. And this is going to open up that room's profile. You can see there's a Rally Bar, blue means there's an update waiting, yellow, warning, red, error, green, happy days. I can see there's a tap, site, and a tap scheduler. Click on the Rally Bar, and click update. It's not going to update immediately. It's going to give me an option. So I can update now, or I can schedule the update for later. So if I've got a change management window that I need to do any work in, and I can't just update willy-nilly, or I want to update overnight, for example, I can schedule it for whenever I need to schedule that. Configuration. So I can do that remote configuration here. So there is some configuration here that you will notice that may not be available if you've got experience with Rally Bars, particularly anything that has a live view for a camera. We're not streaming real-time traffic to the cloud from a Rally Bar, so you can't view a camera, for example. But for the majority, you can configure pretty much all your devices here, or you could do it as a bulk configuration. So we've got our view modes for how the camera is going to react to people in that room, and just a few options about how quick they're going to frame that. Some things that might be important is connectivity. So if we're a hardwired connection, you want to maybe see what's going on with your network or check what IP it's got, we can see there that all that information is available, even if it's on wireless. And there are some businesses who prefer to turn all Bluetooth off, particularly defense would be an example there. So they like pretty much no radio communications on the devices. You could turn Bluetooth off as well. Lastly, system. So your out-of-box experience with Rally Bar, you got to do a whole bunch of initial configuration. You can come and modify that from here as well. So as you can see, a lot of this is stuff that you're not going to find the ability to do in Teams Admin Console or Pro Portal, or rather it's quite complementary to that service. I will say Teams, Admin Console, and Pro Portal can do updates of your Logitech hardware as well with the latest CollabOS devices. But what you get in Sync is that beta channel as well. So you get access to all those new features beforehand, so you can test it. So when it does roll out to public availability, you can then roll it out with confidence that it works. Where is it? We have got a feature coming. I'm pretty sure I can talk about it, and I hope I don't get in trouble. One of the cool features we've got coming is the ability to be able to update the Teams application separate from the main operating system as well. So that one is coming, which is very handy because possibly sometimes you want to update the Teams Room on Android application rather than the whole operating system at any given time. So that will be coming too, and there'll be a dedicated channel within Sync for that to manage. Okay, insights data. So I keep talking about insights data, or this analytical data that we're capturing. The Rally Bar and the Rally Bar Mini have that AI camera on there, and it's able to pretty much scan the room 24/7 and give you some idea of how your room's being used and present it in this graph. So because, again, this is depends on what group I'm selecting. So if I go all groups, it's going to give me some other data or extra data. But let's look at integrate again. And I can see anything down this quadrant here is a room that feels like it's going to be typically underutilized. Everything up here is going to be overutilized. It's a show floor. Of course, it's overutilized. There's everybody walking around. And I guarantee this is the coffee, our BYOD section. Yep. And we are seeing a seat usage of a wonderful 558% because there's a lot of people walking through all the time. And of that, 54% of the time, someone's actually used the device in a meeting. But if we look more in the middle, what room we're looking at here, scribe wall. So this is that wall that's, if you've been to our booth, it's opposite that little hutch thing. It's the one that has the scribe currently. We can see that this room has been used, look at that, 265% of the time, in a meeting 49% of that time as well. And if we look on the other end of that spectrum, we can see that that Zoom room with the site in there has been used, seat usage has been 48% of the time, or 48% filled most of the time. Now, those percentages are coming down to the fact that I've specified how many people are to be in that room at any given time. So for some of those rooms, it's going to be 6 people, some of those rooms, 20 people, and it's going to scale your data according to how many people are assigned or meant to be in that room. Let's look at all our groups, and we'll look at something a bit more real life. So if I look at our Sydney office, we actually flew our whole team in on Tuesday, and they spent the day Tuesday having wonderful sessions about the business and then talking, which is great for me because that gives me great looking data to look at that room. If I remember which room it is, could be this one. No, this one. Another room. So I'm going to actually click on that room, and it's going to present me this data a bit more drilled down. And it's going to give me a graph here, and I can show this data for 24-hour periods as well. So if I hover over this half an hour slot, it says that between 2:30 and 3 o'clock, that room was in use for that 30-minute period. Average people count 13, max people count 15. So at some point, somebody walked out, somebody walked in, somebody walked out there. If we look at this same data, but for one of our integrate rooms, we're going to see a lot more dark purple, which indicates a lot more usage. I can drill down here. And the darker the purple, the more the room's been used or overutilized, for example. So we can see at this half an hour slot between 12 and 12:30 yesterday, the room was in use for 13 minutes at that point. Counted 13 people, max people count it got was 18. That room's only set to be 6 people. So that's why we're getting like big data saying, hey, that room's being overutilized. Ideally, you want to see that light purple, max people 9, but your average was 4.9. So that room's set for 6 people. So this is the kind of data that just helps you understand how your room's being utilized. If you've got a 12-person room that's consistently very, very lightly colored, so 2 people are using it regularly, you're going to be able to see that that room's not being utilized properly. If you've got a 3-person room that's constantly got 12 people in it, probably need to sort that out because that's not the right way to use that room. Part of that uplifted service with Sync Plus is that we've got email alerts, and one of those email alerts can be occupancy alerts as well. So Teams is awesome. It will do an occupancy alert as well, but we can shoot off an email to a concierge, for example, and they can say, hey, there's a room meant for 6 people, but it's got 9 people in there. maybe move them on to a different room. That's probably more important when it was COVID times and we're more conscious about social distancing, but gives you a good indication of your space. Any questions so far? Sorry, I should have asked that a bit earlier. No? Feel free to shout out if you do have a question. Quickly check. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. So all our devices, so anything that's running ClabOS, so your Rallybar Mini, Rallybar Huddle, Roommate, they all have the sync application with sync built into it as well. And so part of the out-of-box experience is that you can sign into your sync tenancy. That allows you to do that for a BYOD space now. So Rallybar Mini has that little AI camera that's going to be able to scan the room 24/7, and you're able to get that data as well. If I go to people counting, correct. So first question we usually get when it comes to people counting is, oh, you're recognizing my face, you're doing AI facial tracking. We're not getting any identifiable information at all. What we're looking for is head, shoulder shapes, that kind of a body shape, and we're able to count based on that. Yep. So if I go to the huddle, for example, and I'll look at we can see some insight data there. So this is the Rallybar Huddle. This is bad example actually. This is being used as as a Google Meet room. Actually, not a bad example because essentially it's being like it is a BYOD room. So there's a separate compute running that. It's still grabbing that data and sending it to us because the sync application is on ClabOS itself. Then, using my mouse, there it is. Wonderful. So quickly, we're just going to deep dive into some of the sync settings. This is where we can do bulk management. So I can see here for the integrate site, I can look at all my rally bars and do some bulk management right here. So ClabOS, I know there's an update. I can schedule an update for that. Change management might be in 2 weeks. ITIL, ICAB, however you want to call it, might say, yep, you got a window for about 4 hours overnight on a Thursday night. Go to town. I can schedule that. I don't have to be on site to do it. So it just really takes the headache out of having to worry about getting that at the right time. Bulk configuration. So typically we might see a corporate policy saying speaker tracking is the default mode for all the rooms, particularly if you're looking at site. If you've got site in all your rooms, you want to have speaker mode, speaker view on for that to function correctly as well. So you don't want to go out and troubleshooting, why is site not working? Why is that not working the way we need it to? So you go speaker view, push it out globally to all your devices. And you also have some of your other features down there as well, which we saw at an individual level. Reboots, bulk reboots. This is something that is actually very good. A lot of people cried out for being able to reboot your devices remotely and also doing it in bulk and also scheduling it as well. So similarly, sometimes you just want to give your device a bit of a refresh every couple of weeks. You can do a bulk reboot overnight and you've got that peace of mind happening there. And then going on to the update channels, we talked about the update channels there, about how you can really control the firmware that's out in your field. So in this case, we have production and beta. We've created a VIP. So our lovely managing director, Damien, he has a Rallybar Mini in his office. And we can see that there is a Rallybar Mini sitting in the VIP. And I'm going to ensure that he does not get the beta firmware or even maybe last production firmware until we know, all his happy days. And then we'll warn him saying, hey, we're going to update your unit. Here are the new features you're going to get, and then update it. So I've got that granular control over that. We have a lab, and we can see we've got devices in the lab too. So I like to maintain certain firmware versions for that. So it's just good to be able to control that. I can add as many 10 extra channels on top of the production and beta, so a total of 12. And if you're using 12 channels, I'd love to talk to you because I'd love to see how you're using that. What? Okay, so that's pretty much a lot of the meeting room stuff. I might quickly duck into the flex desks. Everyone's seen that Logitech Flex at our desk, the white unit, little 8-inch screen. You're able to hot desk and book your desk here as well. We're managing those very similarly to the meeting rooms. So you can see from the left menu there, same options. You're going to get the same data. So dashboard overview, I have 4 desks. I actually should have some errors here because I don't have all the desks connected at the moment. But then we can drill down to the issues. So we're going to see 2. Beautiful. We've got 2 here that are currently not connected. They didn't actually even make it out of the box onto the stand because we didn't have time, and they're there. They're at the back, but we just didn't get them out of the box. So we can see that the desk entirely is offline as well. So that's really helpful to know if someone's gone up to a desk, they've come in, they've kicked out the power one morning, and then their peripherals aren't working. You can see, oh, your desk is offline. I can go and check. Oh, yeah, please. Mm-hmm. So SSO enablement is there. AAD is also there. So to enable your SSO, you can come down to your system. It's very hard to do this. Under your account, hang on, I'm just going to think about this for a second. I'm not going to do it because it's actually going to show some data I don't think would be appropriate to show. But under account, there's a little option there called SSO enablement. You click that, it'll actually send off a ticket to our sync team, and then they will do that. There may be a form, there may be some data that you need to give saying, hey, this is we are using Azure Active Directory, or if you're using Okta, for example, as well, and then that gets enabled on our end, and then there'll be direct communication to you if you've requested that. So yeah, so SSO enablement for AAD is 100% there, Okta as well. If you've got other authentication methods or other SSO brokers that you want to discuss, definitely click the link to do SSO enablement, and someone will reach out and then help out with that process as well. That's okay. Any other questions online? It's okay. So touching back on flex desks, I can see there's issues, much like inventory for meeting rooms. I can see my inventory here for these. And just like any other ClubOS device like Rallybar, I can click on a unit and then it brings up the same features here. I've got same update channels I can do. There's not much configuration for a flex desk to happen here. But what we can do is come down to settings for that. And there are some desk policies as well for those devices. Now, Logitech Flex desks, very new for us. This is one of those instances where we're going to be pumping a whole bunch of features in here as time goes on. It's going to really mature and bloom as a really awesome service. But as of today, we've got functions like being able to set a time limit to how far in advance you can reserve a desk, for example. Is the desk, can you release the vacancy for the desk as well? There are other features as well that will prevent anybody else from using the desk if you've booked it. So part of this is a sister app we have called Logitune. So there's an app on your phone and there's an app on your computer. And what will happen is my corporate account will be on Logitune on the computer, also on my phone. If I come in and connect to the Logitech Flex, it'll know who I am and it'll say, welcome, Stephen. However, if I've booked the room and then Taylor comes in and tries to connect his laptop, it's going to say, hang on, you're not Stephen, not your desk, and it's going to actually lock the peripherals off so you can't actually use the desk. And we can set time limits as well. So your default booking time might be 8 hours, might be 2 hours. It depends on what your corporate policy might be there too. We do similarly break down in sites, but rather than just lots of subgroups, we actually think about this a bit more cleverly in that we have physical location in the world, building, location and a zone, for example, as well. So you can break it down into zones and maybe your work groups. We have some pretty cool features about being able to alert your coworkers if you're going to be in that day, if you're going to be at what desk, and you can alert those people as well. I'm not here talking about Logitech Flex, but I am here talking about Sync. And similarly, with Flex desks, we do get analytical data. I'm going to say that probably at least once. So we can see our weekly pattern, our usage type. Now, we haven't really got any meaningful data this past 2 days because it's only been up 2 days. But if we're looking at multiple weeks, multiple months, we're going to get some really accurate data about how often those desks are being used. Are people returning to the office accordingly? If you've got a usage of 20% of your desks at any given day, maybe you need to rethink your return to office or hybrid policies there, just as a total example. And lastly, something that's actually really cool is when we're looking at Logitech Flex and Logitune, for example, we're able to, we haven't actually got any devices in this one, but we're able to manage firmware for personal devices. So when you're looking at your Logitech enterprise or business class keyboards and mice headsets, like your Zone Vibes, for example, business webcams like your Brio or your Brio 505, we're able to see these devices come up in here. So if my laptop has Logitune installed, it's logged in with my corporate account. Any devices, Logi devices I have connected to this will appear in Sync, and then will be able to be managed firmware-wise. Now, as a IT administrator, I'm not going to force someone to update the devices. I'm not going to say push update now, and it's going to update someone's device in the middle of a meeting. It's actually going to publish an update instead, and it's going to pop up on the computer, and it says, hey, you have some updates awaiting for your peripherals. Would you like to update now? Yes, no. And they get five chances to ignore that, pretty much. After the 5th chance, there's no ignoring it. They're going to get updated. But it just means that you keep your whole fleet under like the same firmware version. So when people call up, you know that what you're going to be dealing with. So I'm hoping that I made that a little bit clear about how Sync is meant to complement Teams Admin Center or even Pro Portal as well, in that Sync is very much a peripheral-based control and configuration and management, whereas Pro Portal, while there is a level of management for your devices, it's very much account-driven or very much your service-driven there as well. And where's my mouse? So I mentioned that Sync is free. You're welcome to sign up. If you have or your business has not signed up Sync before and your domain has not been associated to Sync, sync.logitech.com will take you right to our page. And all you have to do is click down on sign up, and that's going to prompt you to enter your email address and everything there and sign up. Lastly, and I am finishing up a little bit early, which is good. I'm going to give everyone some time back. Come past our stand. We do have a raffle at the moment to win a PS5. Come by, have a chat. If you want to learn more about Sync, I'm down there. I will deep dive into any of that stuff that you've seen. And also, we have our online Logitech room configurator as well. So if you're planning to design some meeting rooms in your place of work, and you are not sure what would fit in each room, you can head to the configurator. It's actually going to guide you through that whole process and tell you what's the best device in that room. Any questions online, Kaylo? Sure. Sure. Okay. 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 Do we have who that user is by chance? And we'll absolutely. Please reach out to me if you're obviously coming in. Come and see me at the stand, or if you've been in already, please feel free to reach out to me. We can share my email address a little bit later, and then yeah, let's touch base about that one and get that sorted. Wonderful. Any questions in house? Thank you very much for your time. I really do appreciate it. Come by the stand, come grab me. We'll check out Sync, and then we can go through it bit by bit. Thank you very much.